Hello and welcome to Worthy Woman Healing. I am Lisa Czak, your host, healing women's minds, bodies, and souls, one trigger at a time. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe so even more women can experience healing their mind, body, and soul. And on today's episode, I have a very special guest. Her name is Chelsea Liebowtiz, and she is sharing her own personal story of how she was groomed and sexually exploited by a family friend. Stay tuned. All right, let's do this. Okay, so Chelsea, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I know this is not easy. I know it's not easy for you to come on and share your story. But before we even get into anything, I want to help you shift gears because I know you were just with Lucy, your beautiful dog, and just getting off work. So this is a chance. I just want to tell everyone listening, this is a great way for you to see what I mean, because usually I'm just saying this to myself, right? There's no person on the other end. So all of you listening can actually see what it looks like, right? And so Chelsea, how are you feeling now, honestly, about to do this interview talking about how you were groomed by a sexual predator?
A little nervous.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to help you with that just by helping you shift gears. So go ahead and close your eyes, get comfortable. You're already in your nice, comfortable hammock there. I love that. I got to put mine up. We just moved in this house. I haven't put it up yet. So give me 3 deep cleansing breaths and really exhale on the way out, really allowing your whole body to just melt into the hammock that you're being supported on. You can do more than 3 breaths. Just allowing yourself to just be in this space and just noticing the temperature of the room on your skin. Notice any noises you might hear either inside or out or on my end. I'm here with Elvis and Emmy, so hopefully they'll behave. If you hear some noises, that's probably what it is. And just notice any smells that are in the room. If you're saying to yourself, I can't smell anything, maybe take your hand and smell it. Like I just put lotion on, I can smell lotion on my hand. Smell your hair or your sweatshirt that you're wearing. And just notice how your body feels in the chair that you're sitting in. Maybe your feet are touching the ground, or maybe they're dangling. Your back being supported, just simply being aware of your body on the surface that you're sitting on. And then notice anything you taste in your mouth. I have a cough drop in my mouth, so I'm tasting that right now. Maybe you just had a drink of something. We go about our day forgetting to stay in touch with what we're seeing and feeling and touching. And just notice your breath, not forcing it to be any way than it is. Are you breathing shallow, rapid? Chelsea, maybe you said you're a little nervous about this, so maybe your breathing's a little rapid. Don't try to make it be any different than it already is. Just being aware of it, not judging it. And do a body scan, starting with the toes all the way to the crown of the head. And just noticing any places that maybe you feel the nervousness. And you can put your hand where you feel it and just simply acknowledging it, allowing yourself to feel it and just sending it love. Not trying to make it go away. We spend a lot of time trying to resist our feelings instead of allowing ourselves to really feel them. And notice if there's any other areas in your body that have any tension or tightness, maybe warmth, tingles. Your hands, are they in fists? If they are, just unclench your hands. Your jaw, make sure your jaw is relaxed. Check in on your brow. Is your brow all scrunched up? Is your forehead scrunched up? Are your shoulders and your ears? If they are, just relaxing those. And if you notice any areas that need some love and attention that aren't feeling so great, you're just right now, you're just simply saying, I see you, I feel you. I'm going to get back to you, so that you're not ignoring places in your body that need extra love and attention. And in your mind, name 3 things that you're grateful for, making sure one of those things hasn't happened yet. But you know if it's in your best interest, it will happen. And allow that love and gratitude to just flow through every cell of your body, so you carry it with you the remainder of this episode. And after you leave, knowing what you have to do the rest of your day or evening, and now set your intention for how you want to feel during this episode and after you leave this episode. And for Chelsea, also after the episode is released. Remembering that you always have a choice in how you want to feel. No one else gets to control that. No one. Only you get to control how you feel. So it's acknowledging and being honest with yourself. I feel a little nervous about doing this episode today, and I'm choosing to fill in the blank, whatever that might be. Choosing to feel safe, or choosing to feel calm, choosing to feel empowered. Whatever that intention might be for you. And allow that intention to just flow through every cell of your body, so that you carry it with you during this episode, after this episode, after it's released. And then if you have a powerful I am statement, which I talk a lot about on this podcast, you're going to say that in your mind right now, not overthinking it. I know, Chelsea, when we worked together before, your I am was I am safe. Maybe that's still your I am. If you have a different I am, whatever comes to mind, it could be the same as your intention also. And say it 3 times in your mind with the energy behind it. What does it feel like to actually be this I am? What does it feel like to step into this episode being this I am? To leave this episode being this I am? What are people saying to you? What's your self-talk? How are you walking around the world differently, being this I am? And allowing this I am statement to just flow through your entire body, along with the love and the gratitude and your intention for how you want to feel, seeping into every cell of your body, and you're carrying it with you. And now just notice the temperature of the room on your skin again. Maybe it feels warm or cool, or you have a fan on you. Notice any noises you hear inside or out, or on my end. Elvis has begun snoring, which is always fun during a podcast episode. Notice any smells in the room. Notice any taste in your mouth. Notice your breathing. Maybe you're breathing different than when you first came in here. Not judging it, just accepting the way you're breathing. It's okay. And doing a body scan from your toes all the way to the crown of your head. If there's any areas that needed attention before, how are they feeling now? Just simply being aware of your body. Are there any areas that need some extra love? Some breath sent to? And then slowly open up your eyes. Get acclimated to the light again. And let us know what's your intention for this, how you want to feel this episode and after, and your I am statement.
I just want to stay calm and then feel empowered after doing it. And my I am is I am safe in my body.
Just like when we were together. I love that I am statement, and you are safe. And so I just want to say, I know I already said this before we press record. If at any point you don't feel safe, and I'm telling you this, Chelsea, so our listeners can learn also, right? Because when we're survivors of any kind of abuse and we're sharing our story, we always have the right to keep ourselves safe. That's our number one job, right? To keep ourselves safe. So if you need a break during this interview, and again, this is for anyone out there who is inspired after Chelsea, maybe you're not going to go on a podcast and tell it, but maybe you're going to tell a friend for the first time or someone you trust and love for the first time. Hey, I never told you what actually happened to me, right? And then you set some ground rules, though. You set some boundaries, right? As you're saying it, at any point, you know what? I don't want to say this. I don't want to continue with this. I need to protect myself right now and not feel bad about it, right? Not feel bad about it. Okay, so we work together. I'm not going to share details. Don't worry. This is your story to tell, which is why I'm having you on. But when we worked together, you shared with me some things that happened to you when you were younger involving grooming of a sexual predator. And I am on a mission to help educate people and understand what grooming even is. It's really love bombing also. They can be interchanged, right? Because it's so misunderstood. And it sounds like something the boogeyman would do, right? A stranger danger. And in most cases, right, I think it's like 96% of the cases, it's very high. It is someone you know and trust and love, and that your family and friends know also, which is what happened to me also. And so that's very misunderstood. So I want to make that clear that this isn't, you weren't, abducted. It wasn't I'm, pulling you into a white van and hauling you off. It is a different kind of, that's like the 80s style, right?
Right.
This was a different, I call it an abduction because it's really an abduction of your mind, body, and soul. And the abuser has you in shackles, and not literal shackles, right? It's up here and in your heart.
Right.
So would you like to share with us because I don't want to tell, right? Like I see these things that drives me crazy. How to prevent, sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. And they give a list. It's so vague, though. It's much more powerful, which is why I'm so proud of you for coming on here, because it paints a picture of how it actually happens. And it's insidious, and over time, it takes time to groom someone. It doesn't just happen overnight, right? And the abuser is not somebody that's a horrible, like he's not always horrible, right? Because if he was always horrible, you wouldn't get away with the abuse. And grooming is the gateway to abuse. If there's no grooming, no abuse can happen, which is why today I really want to focus on the grooming part of it. So people understand, they can get this picture and we can save lives. We can save young girls' lives, women, all ages, their lives by you sharing your story. So I cannot thank you enough. So just share with us, like, how did the grooming begin in hindsight? Well, number one, let me just ask you this question. This is yes or no. Did you know you were being groomed?
No,
Did you see, did you ever see him as a sexual predator?
no. I mean, eventually, but not in the
But
beginning.
when you were right, when you were in that grooming stage, right? So share with us how it began.
So I had a lot of anxiety. I was about 13, 14. I had a lot of anxiety. My brother was going through some stuff. My parents were going through some stuff. And my brother was sent to a boarding school across the country. We live in Michigan. He went to school in California. And I was just really struggling, and I thought I had asthma. And I mean, I did have asthma, but it was like a different kind of asthma. And my pediatrician was like, you just have anxiety. You need to go talk to someone. So I went to this first therapist, and I would go there and she would say, "How are you doing?" And I would say, "Fine." And then we would sit there in silence for an hour. Wasn't a good pediatric therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Went to another therapist. I kind of liked her more, but then she was like always double billing my parents. So like that didn't work either. Went to a third therapist. She was better, but like she also saw my mom. And so there was just some trust issues for me to be able to really trust her. So I didn't really get along with them. And so I had all these therapists that I was going to, and eventually, um, and they just weren't working, basically. It wasn't a good fit. So my brother's at this school, and there's this person who became a liaison between the school and my parents. He was the one that would call my parents and give updates on my brother. And he was kind of in a counselor position. I don't think he was a former parole officer. He he became like a counselor to me because eventually my mom would, my mom kind of got pretty close to him. They became really good friends. And then my mom was like, "Hey, my daughter's also struggling. Can you talk to her?" Because they were at boarding school, they kind of did all these like summits, they did these seminars, they taught the kids certain things. So he kind of would start talking to me. And so my mom, I would be in the car with my mom and she'd be like, "Here, talk to this guy." And so I would talk to him, and it became kind of like this close counselor type relationship. And so that kind of went on and off for a year. And then I ended up having back surgery for scoliosis. And at that point, my mom and him had become pretty close. And he actually came out to our house to kind of hang out with us and to help my mom kind of with my back surgery. And so that's when it like was a little weird because I remember being like I was really out of it because I was taking a lot of narcotics for my back surgery, but he would kind of like sit in the room and watch me. But again, I'm so doped up on medication that I don't really care and whatever. And like my mom was kind of nauseous and queasy around steri strips, so he was kind of helping to take them off and doing some of those things. So after that, we kind of just still talked more, and then I found myself like talking to him on the phone a lot and almost every day, um, and then we would text all the time, and so that's really how it started. Is we were just talking, we're texting. I'm having a really hard time. I'm missing a lot of school. I don't get along with the kids. I don't feel challenged at school. I don't feel like I have any friends at school. I went to high school. I didn't feel like I had really any friends there. Right. So when my back surgery was at the turn of a semester, so I had a new semester with new kids and new classes. I was there for a week and then I was gone for a month. So when I came back, I was really lonely. Everyone had already formed their friend groups. I was really far behind. So when everyone's trying to talk and socialize, I have to do homework. And it was just like a really lonely period in time for me. And he was there for me and he would talk to me and we would joke. And it was cool, right? It was fun. It felt like someone cared. It felt like someone understood me. He kind of understood
Mm-hmm.
the dynamic between me and my mom, so he was kind of able to talk about that. And I felt like my mom was going through her own trauma. And just for the record, I don't blame my parents for any of this either, right? They didn't know either, but my mom has her own trauma. She has her own sexual abuse trauma. And that's not my story to tell, that's her story. But she was going through her own stuff, and I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but she was like going through her own stuff. And so okay, so she was going through her own stuff, and then she would like we didn't always have the closest connection kind of at that stage. And so he kind of recognized that and he would acknowledge that. And he would, it was a moment where, everyone's, oh, your mom's so great. You're so great. She's so great. But I didn't feel like I was getting enough emotional attention. And he provided that to me. He gave me something that I didn't feel like I was getting elsewhere. And so really that's how it started. I just became very close to this guy. There was a lot of banter. And remember, I'm like 14, 15 at this point. There's a lot of banter back and forth. And it was just like, it was fun. It was just a way to communicate. So that's kind of how it started.
So I love your honesty with this too, that it was someone that you knew, like he knew your mom really well. And he saw this need, right? That you were feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And he seemed like, it sounds like what you're saying, he seemed like a really nice guy who cared.
Right. Right.
So,
And it was fun. It was playful. It was banter. And then
through
one day,
text?
both on the phone and text.
Uh-huh.
And so then one day we're on the phone and he just tells me that he thinks about having sex with me. I just didn't say anything. And he's going on. And he's like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. I have no idea what to think. Like I said, I had back surgery. I turned 15 in the hospital. Being attracted to guys at that time wasn't a really big thing. Like, some girls, when they turn 13, 12, 13, they're boy crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't boy crazy. I wasn't really boy crazy. I didn't understand attraction. I didn't understand desire. I didn't understand sexual, like being turned on. I didn't understand any of that. So he's like, I want to have sex with you. I'm like, I don't know what this means. That seems a little creepy, but whatever, right? Like, he's not hurting me. He's not actually having sex with me. Okay, like I didn't know what I was supposed to do with that. So he calls me back the next day and he's like, oh, you answered my call. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I didn't think you would. And I was like, was I not supposed to? He was just like, well, I don't know. And just kind of goes on. And then suddenly we're start talking about sex.
So what was the time frame that this happened from the time like you started talking and trusting him, right? To him saying, hey, you want to have sex? What was the time frame?
It was probably about 2 years.
Right. That's what I want to get. Like a lot of these answers I know are because we talked in some, our sessions about things. I want people to understand that it takes time to groom someone. You see how like trust had to be built
Right.
over like his intentions, right? And
Right.
make no mistake about it, that was his intention, like from day one, right? That's what predators do. Like, I'm going to exploit this person.
But yeah, I was not his last.
Yeah, right. And so when he said that he wanted to have sex with you, you said that okay, that's creepy.
Yeah.
So that was your initial thing, like that's creepy. Because how old was he?
In his late 40s.
Right,
Because I
and
would
you're
all the time. I was like, you're 3 times my age.
right, and you're 14, 15. So when he said that, did it ever cross your mind? Did you ever think, oh man, maybe I should tell my mom about this or tell someone about this? Like what was your thought process when he said that besides the creepy, right? Because that's what happens. It's like a split thing. Oh, that's creepy. And then what's that?
I'm also curious. What does that mean?
Exactly.
I don't know what that means. What does it mean to want to have sex with someone? What does it mean? So we kind of started talking about that. And then after we start talking about it a lot, well, then I'm kind of like aroused by the conversation, right? Like, again, like wasn't watching porn. I wasn't making out with guys. I didn't understand any of these things. So he's teaching me. So it got to a point where after enough time has passed by, he was like, don't tell your parents. And if you tell your parents, then I'm never going to talk to your mom again. And I'm going to walk away. And so my mom liked to kind of talk to me about some of her problems. And when he was talking to her, she would go to him instead of me. And that felt nice. It was like a relief. So he was like, hey, if you tell your parents, I'm going to just walk away. And I knew that would be devastating for my mom. So I'm trying to protect my parents, right? I'm trying to protect my mom. I don't want her to get hurt because I know how much she's had to deal with. And so that became why I didn't tell anyone. It was like
Mm-hmm.
that emotional blackmail. So at first, like,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And then he starts talking to me. He's talking to me about it. Nothing's happening. Right. So I'm like, okay, nothing's wrong. And then he just keeps telling me more and more. And I do know at some point I had the thought of this is what my trauma is going to be. Like,
Oh, at 14, 15.
yeah, I was like, and I just remember being like, this is what my trauma, everyone goes through a trauma. That was kind of my belief.
Mm-hmm.
And this is mine. I didn't know how to
Mm-hmm.
stop it. I was waiting for someone to say it. And my parents at one point did say something. But at that point, I was like in that short little phase where it's kind of enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. What? So your parents said something to you or to him?
Both. So basically what happened was like 15, like, so basically I turned 15 when I had my back surgery. And after that, I think that was probably when the sex conversation came up because he was like, oh, I would just watch you while you were sleeping. It's creepy as fuck. It's like, what? All right. I just want to have sex with you. I don't know what that means. And then I think he like came out again and then he would kiss me and he would touch me and like, it felt good. I never touched myself before. I didn't know. I didn't have, I never explored that. So then now I'm exploring this thing that I've never explored to with this guy
And where did this happen? Because you're 14, 15, you're still living at home. Where would this happen?
at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm. And I'm asking that on purpose because I want parents, this isn't just to prevent, right? I want parents to hear this also, that it can happen right under your nose, right in your own home,
Right.
where you probably felt safe, right?
Right.
And he knew that, like he knew you felt safe. He's not going to say, hey, I'm going to take you to a hotel where you feel unsafe.
We did when I had turned 16.
Right. So you see, and that's what I wanted to get to, the progression, right? It's a progression that happens. So you didn't have any boundaries around this, right? Because you said you didn't even know what sex was. It wasn't even on your radar. So there were no boundaries to even cross. He was getting you to sort of expand your boundaries before you even had the boundaries
Right.
until there were no boundaries.
Right.
And this is really important. I really want people to understand this. Grooming and love bombing feels amazing.
Yeah.
People say, why didn't you just stop? Right? Why didn't you just do it? So, because it feels amazing. If somebody had told you, if I had come into your life at that point, right? And I said, Chelsea, he's a sexual predator. He's grooming you.
Right.
He's sexually exploiting you, right? With that,
Right.
what would you have said?
Would have said, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. And so that's what happened. And so he was kissing me. We were making out. Sometimes we would go to California and he would come see me there. I know at one point, like my parents were in the other room, and he was like, "Come in the bathroom with me," and then he started making out with me. But then it becomes abusive, right? In the situation of I'm like, my family's out here. This is weird. Stop. And he doesn't like the way I kissed him. And so then he leaves and he's texting me like, that was really disappointing. I'm really sad you didn't text me, like kiss me goodbye. I'm not going to see you for 6 months. All of these things. And I'm like, no, come back, come back. And he's like, no. And then he just doesn't answer me and ghosts me. Right. And so then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like all upset. Like I'm 16. I feel like I've disappointed him. I don't know how old I was, 15, whatever, because I was only kissing, probably only 15. I feel like I've disappointed him. And it was just like, became like a game of could he kiss me without anyone seeing? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was just like, it was just a very weird game. Um, and so Yeah, I mean the timeline is all blurry. It all kind of runs together.
But we're
But what
talking years, right? Like two
Yeah, I mean, this is
years.
like started probably sometime after I was 13 until about 17.
Right. And then the threatening, right?
Right. And then don't tell anyone. I'm never going to talk to them. I'm just going to walk away. And I didn't know what that meant for anyone, for my mom, for my family, for my brother.
Hmm. And
Right.
at that point, during any of those incidences or any, like when he was threatening you, did you ever think, okay, I want to go and tell my mom this or tell somebody this?
Not until 5 years after.
Hmm. Super common. That's the reason why I'm at. So why? I know why. I want listeners to know why though.
So, because at the time I thought it was consensual. So what's the big deal,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So, in my mind, it was consensual until, so I turned 16. He came out. I took him to a hotel. He was like doped up on Xanax or muscle relaxants or something. It was a horrible time. He made us late for dinner. And it was around that time when my parents were like, my mom was like, hey, is he hurting you? Is he touching you inappropriately? Okay, but at that time, it wasn't inappropriate to me because it felt good.
Hmm.
So it's not appropriate, right? Is he having sex with you? Right. And so sometimes in these instances, for the listeners, the most best question is the direct question: are you having sex with so and so?
Yes. I
Right.
love that. I love that you said that.
It's because
Hmm.
I can't, like, if I'm saying no, then I'm lying, right? And I have a pretty strong moral compass in that I don't want to lie. I don't want to hurt anyone.
Hmm.
If, but the question of they're afraid to say this: is he hurting you? No, it feels great. Is he touching you
Yes.
inappropriately? It feels consensual to me at this point, right? And so then they had that conversation. I said no. And then it kind of happened a few more times. And then I was out in California and he took me to his house and he drugged me and raped me. And at that point, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Then he started talking about marriage. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I had no idea what was going to happen because, again, I didn't have any relationships. I didn't know that you can be in a relationship for so long and it ends. And I didn't know how it was going to end. But he started talking about marriage. I said, no, I want to marry someone my own age. He's like, oh, well, we can meet once a week for every year and like Brokeback Mountain style. That's what he would say, Brokeback Mountain style. We can just have sex. And I was like, you're gross. Like this relationship used to actually be helpful to me, and now it is only about sex. And it was an obsession. And at some point, it felt good, right? Because he's like, oh, I want to do all these things to you, and it felt good. It was creepy.
Yeah, I love that you keep repeating that. Like, I can't drive that home enough. It feels good. And the fact that you even said your mom was asking the wrong questions, that's so important
Yeah.
to ask the right questions. Like you said, is it hurting? No, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest, I call it a mind fuck, right? It's like this happens to kids or anyone that's being sexually abused. If it feels good, okay, he's not hurting me. And this person cares about me and loves me, so it must be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but he made me violate every boundary. We're talking about sex. He wants to have sex with me. I think that's really weird, but he's presenting these
Mhm.
things that sound cool. And then I was like, you have to wear a condom. He's like, no, I don't want to. And I was like, no, you have to wear a condom. And then we would just talk about it every day for months. And he was like, no, I'm not wearing one. You're on birth control. But again, with that birth control came with all the comments of how funny would it be if you had a baby and he was black and a little black baby popped out. Ha ha ha. That would be so funny. And I was like, I'm literally on birth control because before I even met,
Mhm.
I was terrified of being pregnant. It was just,
Mhm.
I didn't, again, like I knew you had to have sex to get pregnant, but being more than 28 days scared me. My hormones weren't regular and it just caused me so much anxiety. And then he's like, he knows that and he's extorting it and he's making it even worse. And so he
Mhm.
didn't have a condom. And like, I remember going to the OBGYN and I almost did tell her. And she was like, are you sexually active? And I said, no. And there's that myth that your hymen breaks when you have sex for the first time. And I said to myself, if my hymen is broken, I will tell her. She's doing my exam and she's like, oh, your hymen's still intact. So I did tell her.
Oh, that's good for OBGYNs to know too, right? Like what you just said. And if she had asked you, is anyone hurting you, you would have said no either, right? No, he's not hurting me. There's
Right.
no hurt
I
going
don't know if
on.
I would have told her. I don't know. Are you having, because she said, are you sexually active? No.
What do you think
Well,
is the number one reason you didn't tell her or anyone?
because it would go back to my parents. And I wanted to protect them.
Yeah.
And a big thing, I thought I would get in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever think people won't believe me?
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. I mean, not so much. I knew that if I said it, they would believe me, but I just thought I would get in trouble. That I would be responsible for ruining their lives.
Yeah. That's a huge, huge thing. I really want listeners to understand that.
Yeah.
Right. And if say a woman is watching this, I don't care what her age is, right? And say she's in it right now and she's listening to your story and she's like, because when you're in it, like you said, when you're in it, you didn't see it as abuse. Not
No.
until you were raped and drugged. Then did you see it as an abuse?
Yes.
Yeah. Some women don't actually, right? They don't. They still make up stories, or the guy lies to them, the predator's lying to them. So that woman that's watching though, because this is what happens a lot of times, right? Is you don't yeah, go ahead. Time out.
Yeah.
Where are you feeling this in your body right now? Let's do a little healing. Just let it out. Just let those tears flow. And what's the story in your head that's happening right now?
There is no,
Briefly.
it's
Enough.
just healing it for the first time.
Just what?
Healing it for the first time.
Yeah. Put your hand where you feel it the most. And just allow yourself to feel it. Allow little Chelsea to feel it. At 14, 15, 16 to what, 17? 14 to 17-year-old. A lot of developmental things go on those ages.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of layers of healing in there. And feeling, obviously, right?
Yeah.
You have some water handy?
No, that's okay.
Do you want to grab some water?
No, it's too far away.
I can wait. I'm sure it's not like a mile away. Go get yourself some water. You are only as sick as your secrets. It is time to stop suffering in silence and join other women who are also on a healing journey, who are being raw, real, vulnerable, and honest with what they are going through in their life, what they have been through in their life. And wherever two or more are gathered, we know God is with us. It says it right there in the Bible. So there is power to group healing. Miracles happen in there. You have one woman sharing, opening up her heart. Suddenly everyone else in the group is saying, yeah, I've experienced that. I'm not the only one. There's such power in knowing that you are not alone in your suffering. You are not alone in your healing. And we meet twice a month. And in between those times, a lot happens, right? And it's important that you have time in between the sessions to practice the healing technique that I teach you, so you can come back into the group and celebrate with the other women. Hey, I actually remembered to do the healing technique in that moment. That trigger didn't derail me anymore. But it's practice. I'm also a personal trainer, right? You don't just get a 6-pack abs by doing one sit-up. You have to keep doing it over and over again. You don't run a marathon. You don't go out and run 13.1 miles for a half marathon the first time, right? You practice running a little bit every day. And that is what we do in Worthy Woman Healing Group. join today and tell yourself, I'm going to give this a 3-month commitment minimum because I know I need time to practice outside of these sessions, and come in and get guidance from the other women on how to actually heal all of these wounds, heal my mind, body, and soul one trigger at a time. You are worth it.
Okay.
How are you feeling?
Good.
Honestly.
Better. Part of me just
Better?
had to like stop just to show myself I could.
Yeah. To remind yourself, also to remind that teenage Chelsea, right? Hey, we can stop now whenever we want to stop. This is never going to happen to us again, ever. So I'm so proud of you. I really am just so proud of you. I know this is hard. And I also know that there is a woman out there watching this that has, because I work with a lot of women. This is my clientele now, right? And I work with women now. I don't know if you know this, that I work with them as soon as they've been rescued from sex trafficking. And they don't even realize that they don't even see themselves as that, as a person who is sex trafficked. Because when you're in it, you don't see it.
Yeah. And I think that you convince yourself it's consensual to make yourself okay with it.
Yes. Well, and they brainwash you. Really, what's happening is they are brainwashing you to believe it's consensual, and it's coerced consent. That's what it's called. Coerced consent, which is not consent. That's not consent at all, right? If you're being coerced and manipulated and exploited in any way, then it's not consensual. It's so confusing though, right? As a survivor, and notice I'm saying survivor, I'm not saying victim. You were victimized by him. I look at you as a survivor and a thriver of this because you're sharing your story right now. Even if you weren't sharing your story, that's still true. And they brainwash you to believe that you're a willing participant.
Well, and that was the thing too, is if I didn't want to talk about sex or I didn't want to have sex or make out or do whatever, then he wouldn't talk to me. And so I was so alone that I was willing to do whatever I needed to do or whatever needed to be done to make it feel like I wasn't so alone.
Mm-hmm. And he knew that, right? That loneliness. That's how he got in. That's the crack he got in.
Yeah. And so then when he like drugged me and I was like, this is weird, then, I was actually really suicidal after that. And then I like found a group of friends my own age and I started hanging out with them. And then I met a guy my own age and started hanging out with him. And so I would see him a lot, talk to the abuser after school. And so then I was like going to hang out with my boyfriend. I was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And he was like, that's when he's like, oh, well, I'll wear condoms. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And there was like a 2-month overlap where like I started my boyfriend in January, started seeing him. And then in March, I saw the abuser one more time. And he was fine, like, fine, I'll wear condoms, and brings this like giant bag of condoms that don't fit him just to prove he can. And told me a bunch of things that is my parents' personal information that that my mom entrusted him to not tell us, and just did all of these things to try to get me to come back. And I finally said to him, I was like, you can cheat on your wife. So he was married with kids. I said, you can cheat on your wife, but I'm not going to cheat on my boyfriend. And he like still coerced himself on me, but then only didn't actually have sex, but did oral on me, and like wouldn't let it go. And then something that actually you said earlier made me remember, oh, I already said it, where he like would say, if you don't want to do this, then I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And the only way I really got out of it was by having that high school boyfriend, who I still credit to this day of maintaining a lot of my innocence, because I just followed his lead. And he was a very shy, quiet kid. So it was like a very slow natural progression that was very unlike what I had experienced before. Um, and then I met him in high school, so we started dating high school. But I remember like when I went to prom, um, the abuser keeps texting my mom being like, I'm so worried about Chelsea. She's going to have sex and get pregnant. So his daughter had sex on prom and got pregnant. And he was like, she's going to have sex on prom. And meanwhile, like he's worried about me having sex with my boyfriend, but he's already had sex with me. Like he was just like
Mhm.
my mom started to get suspicious too. And I was just finally was like, please tell him to stop texting me. I don't want to text him anymore. And then that finally kind of like got it all to end. And then, but like when I went to college, I had a lot of jaw issues, a lot of anger, I have a secret to say, but I can't say it. I remember talking to my mom and like it would be right there and I would have exactly what I would want to say and it just like wouldn't come out. And then I had like a whole, like I had jaw surgery and I basically started becoming very like psychotic. I was malnourished. I was seeing things. And then after a year of that, I finally one day looked at my boyfriend, who was the same boyfriend, and said, I've had sex before. And he was like, yeah, with me. And I was like, no. Like I told him that I was a virgin. Like I just pretended that it didn't happen. And I still feel bad about that because I think it really messed him up a little bit. But I was like, yeah. And then he immediately drove me home to my parents and I told my parents. But that whole time I was like, it was consensual. It was consensual. And my parents repeated that back to me. Well, at least it was consensual. And at the time, I guess that was what I needed. But at the same time, like
Mhm.
no one really said, hey, it's not consensual. It wasn't consensual.
Mhm. My head's
It
about to
was
blow. I know.
raised-
Like I already know
huh?
that my head's about to my head. I need to piece process my own head. My head's about to explode at that your parents saying that at least it was consensual.
And I think that, I mean, they were just literally repeating it back to me.
Hmm.
I was just so emphatic that it was consensual
Hmm.
because he wasn't holding a gun to my head. There was no violence. And how else could I
Hmm.
explain that it went on for so long without it being consensual?
Oh my gosh, that right there. I just feel like I want people to stop this episode, rewind, and listen to that clip right there. Like if you don't hear anything else in that clip, hear that right there. For parents too. I want parents to understand, and I don't know if your parents actually understand this. But your mom was groomed by him. That's
Yes.
the way predators get to kids. They actually groom the parents, right? They gain the parents' trust.
Oh, I can help her. Let me help her.
And
Oh,
it, yeah,
I need to be one on one on her. Oh,
yeah.
when you come see us in California, she needs to be in a separate room. My mom thinks
Hmm.
that's ridiculous. No, I really Chelsea, go tell your mom that you want to be on separate rooms. Okay?
Hmm.
Like I just creepy.
Yeah, I really want parents to understand this and hear this, right? That's a red flag. If you have any counselor, anyone in the helping profession saying, I need to be alone with your child, you can't be in the room with your child. That's a problem.
Right.
That's a red flag. Like run, even if you're afraid. So this is the other way also, like parents are being groomed, like your mom is being groomed, right? And I don't know if you ever talked to your mom about this, but I'm curious if I had your mom in the room, I'd be asking her, were you also afraid to even early on ask Chelsea or ask him, right? Because she thought, oh my gosh, I found this, great guy and he's helping her and I don't want to ruin that.
She confront him before and like wrote in her journal that she thinks it's happening and he mocked her for it. And then came back to me and laughed about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I like, when you do like that awkward, ha ha ha, I'm really, really uncomfortable right now, but I'm going to laugh because I don't know what else to do.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So make sure you stay tuned. Next week, we're going to find out how Chelsea escaped this sexual predator who was sexually exploiting her at such a young age and how it all turned out for her, how she overcame all of that, right? Because remember, the testimonies, not just what happened to you, it's how you overcame it. So we're going to find out how Chelsea overcame all of this. Stay tuned next week. And remember, you are worth it.